Welcome to the In Between podcast. Today, I am joined by personal branding expert Kate Obert. Kate is a stylist, brand consultant, and advisor. She helps entrepreneurs, executives, and creatives align their external appearance with their inner identity, allowing them to create powerful, authentic brands that resonate with their ideal audience. Kate, welcome to the In Between podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to talk with you all things branding, style, everything, because I own a social media management business. So it aligns a lot with what I do. Obviously, running clients' accounts, branding, personal branding specifically, is so crucial in account growth, account management, and honestly,
Yeah,
just creating a personality within it. But I want to start by your personal story and getting to know you a little bit, telling us how you even landed in the space.
awesome. Yeah, so I mean, it's so interesting to hear from your side because you come from, with your business, a much more strategic approach. I mean, mine is strategic with style and the
Mhm.
external image, but yours is very much what everyone comes across. It's the strategy and it's the marketing and give me this. So it is interesting too to see. I'm excited to get into this conversation to see how much of our clientele aligns, but they're coming to us kind of for the same reason, but with different
Mhm.
headspace. But yeah, so I'm excited
Absolutely.
to get into that. But my background, I have a business marketing major and a clothing and textiles major. So that's my background, my formal education. And then after that, I worked at other random jobs that I could find. Had an internship at Nordstrom. I managed a Michael Kors store. So I had the fashion element there and I did a little bit of celebrity styling underneath it as celebrity stylist in LA. And the thing I kept running into was the fact that your whole career was dependent on if frankly, if someone liked you,
Mm.
if they were threatened by you, if they liked you enough to promote you to the next rank. And that was just something that I kept running into where I would try to utilize my expertise of branding and let's create client experiences within the store. Let's do this. And there was so much red tape that I just got really fed up with it. So I actually left fashion and I just was like, it's funny, I was in my apartment and my roommate had her friend over and I was just, I don't know, I yelled from the other room. I was like, okay, I'll take any job. I don't care what it is. And her friend at the time was like, hey, actually, our CEO is hiring an executive assistant. And I was like, I don't care. Let's do it. Okay, set me up an interview. So that's what I started going into. I worked for a CEO of a digital ad agency. And so that's kind of my introduction, I think, more into the branding side of things as well, because a couple of things. For one, their business rebranded every 150 days. That was just kind of their thing. And
Wow,
it's
that's a
really
nightmare.
cool. Yeah, it was really cool to see because their whole idea was that things are rapidly moving, and especially in the digital space. And so you have to be doing these audits and like, where do we want to position ourselves? How do we want to position ourselves? Obviously, it's not like I think it's more of a brand refresh than like a complete rebrand, but that gave me the insight into his mind and the executive team. So I started learning how they speak to each other, what you need to do in order to keep up, if you will. And
Mhm.
a lot of my role was to get inside of his head and anticipate movement. And
Mhm.
being able to have such close access to people like that, it allowed me to just see things that mattered and what didn't matter. And one of the things that he allowed me to do when I moved out to California from Minneapolis, he was like, I don't care if you work from home. You, as long as you get your work done, cool. And I would have to do things, and set up, I don't all sorts of events, plan a black tie event in 12 hours across the country with 3 hours behind and pull it off. And impossible was just not a word. So all of these things in my background that seem random, I've realized have really come together to create my unique offering and something that I like to do. And I think that's the beauty of a personal brand is the fact that you get to make it however you want to make it. And so I just realized there's like a turning point of, how do I want to help people with what I know? And I want to use all of myself, like 100% of my brain, rather than feeling like I'm only using 40%. And so that's when
Mhm.
I started my own business. And exactly what you said in the beginning, it's just been about helping people bring their personality online. My first client came to me on Instagram because she sent me a DM. I was like, hey, can you teach me how to bring my personality into Instagram in my online space. So that was the beginning. And of course, there's been many evolutions, but it is taking all of those little things and reflecting of where's the through line with everything and how can I bring everything together to create something that only I can offer.
Yeah. Your story is so powerful because I think you're so right. A lot of times people focus on one lane of what they're good at. And it is like a superpower of entrepreneurs for us to be able to figure out all the different things and put them together. And I think
Hmm.
that's the true key to fulfillment in what you're doing is when you have all those different parts of you come together and build what you want to truly create in this world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What inspired you to start your own business? Did you wanna do that from the beginning, or it was something like that one client came to you and you were just like, "Wait, this could be something?"
I think I always knew that I wanted to live life on my own terms. I didn't like the idea that someone could tell me what I can and can't do when I'm an adult. I
Mm,
think it started when I was working at Michael Kors. I wasn't the store manager, so I would still have to request off. And there'd be times where they're like, no, you can't go home for Christmas. I'm like, yes, I can. No, I'm not doing this anymore. Then I found a different job because I don't think it's being restricted to, I mean, there's a time and a place, of course, there's lots of different things within that. But there's, I don't think it's I don't want to live my life like that, where I either want to go home and see my family and be told, no, you can't, you have to be here. And I knew that was like the very beginning. I would say it started making things turn in my brain of how can I make this something, how can I make this work in on my own terms? And so then when I started working for my other boss, the CEO, when he was like, I moved across the country and he was like, you can still work for me. That's fine. As long as you get your work done, I don't care. And that was the first taste of it. Then,
mm,
oh, okay, I can do this. I also can be hella efficient because I'm not getting distractions from people. I'm not having to spend my time driving into an office if I don't want to. Just all these things. I could be so much more efficient. So I had the idea. This is probably, I would say, 2013. I had the taste of it in like 2015, 16. And then I started my business in 2017.
okay. Yeah, I love that your boss was able to give you that opportunity to really taste it, because then it was like, "Okay, I'm gonna run with this and figure out how to live
Yeah.
this life."
Yeah, because I think it's like you grow up and you have your parents telling you what you need to do, obviously as guidance, and same with teachers and even in college a little bit to some degree. And it's, do you really want to live your life that like that the whole time where a boss can
Mm,
then tell you what to do? And I think that it's just I think sometimes, at least for me, I always felt like I was just restrictive of what I could do. I had all of these ideas of how to create client experiences within the store, how to do this and this, but like I couldn't do it because that's not how we do it, or that's
yeah.
not how it's done. And I was like, well, there's no innovation, there's no evolve. And it's just all the things. So I think that you're able to be the fullest expression of who you are, either if you have a fantastic boss and mentor, or you just start your own thing.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely, and it allows you that freedom and that creativity to be like, "Okay, what's next? Where do I wanna
Yeah.
go from here?" So, I would love to hear your definition of personal branding and why it's important.
Personal branding is just your reputation.
Mm,
And it's important because your reputation is everything. When someone walks into or when you walk into a room, how do people perceive you? Our brains are storytelling machines. We have to make sense about everything. We have to assign a story, even if it's not necessarily true, right? Someone walks in the room and all eyes on them, and you're looking and you're trying to, like, in milliseconds, try to figure out and piece together is, like, who are they based on what they're wearing, based on this, the energy that they provide. You're trying really quickly to solve a puzzle of who this person is. And so the biggest thing is that I always say when it comes to personal branding is, yes, you can't control the narrative, but you can control the information they have to form their opinion of you.
mhm,
So that's where it's being really intentional about, what are you, how are you portraying yourself? We're not here to create this false image, this PR image that doesn't quite fit who you are. We're here to showcase yourself authentically and aesthetically showcase your identity. And I think that when you do that and when you align your energy with who you are, and then you match the external appearance, so fashion, website, socials, Google, like if someone Googles you, what comes up? What is every single touch point someone might have with you? And it needs to feel cohesive. Because if it doesn't, it does create this tension with people. And a lot of people don't even really know why. They wouldn't put two and two together. Oh, like what they're wearing doesn't, I'm getting a totally different vibe from who they feel like they are versus how they showcase who they are. And a lot of people won't put that together, but there will be this energetic disconnect. And that can, I mean, we have so many options these days of who to work with. So if there is any amount of disconnect, you'll just go to the next person. So it's just the ability to control the narrative in a way that's authentic and represents who you are.
I love that definition. Thank you so much for sharing that. As far as personal branding goes, if I am a brand, if I am a business owner, where is that first step? Is it getting a branding shoot done? Is it deciding, my really asking myself, who am I and who do I want to show up as? What's that first step?
Definitely. You can't do a brand shoot unless you have all of these other elements figured out first. You can't figure out your colors, your typography, your website, your social media templates. None of that matters if there isn't a clear picture of who you are and what your identity is. So I would say the first thing to do is to, yes, figure out who you are, discover your identity, get that, but like just do a brand audit. And I think brand audits are really important that need to be done more often. I think a lot of people understand the value of having financial audits and business audits, but brand audits should be in there as well. And
Mhm.
it's checking who you are against how other people see you and where's that disconnect, right? So there's all sorts of, checklists that you can go through. But the number one thing that I usually work with is like the brand identity development. Who are you? Who were you? Who are you now? Who are you wanting to be? And because it is creating this next level self concept simultaneously by being who you are, you have to figure out your core, who you are at your core, what is your style, what is your vibe. And then that's where everything else is, all the other questions get answered from that. Because the brand shoot, for example, isn't just about pretty pictures of you. It should be really strategic. What stories are you telling? So knowing who you are is number one, figuring out what are the stories that you're wanting to tell, what are the stories that you want people to know, and then go into how do I convey that storytelling through aesthetics. Everything of what I wear, the location that I choose, the photographer that I work with and their editing style, the props, the poses, all of that, hair, makeup feeds into that story.
Mm.
So, sure, you can have I would say, like your core brand, and you can do a photo shoot based on your core brand, but then you can have different secondary stories that show. I like to say you can have different moods in your brand, but you'll have the same vibe. So
Mhm.
I like to equate this with fashion. It's the easiest thing for people to understand. But sometimes I want to be in athleisure. Sometimes I want to be like girly girl and pink and pearls and everything. Sometimes I want to wear hot pink or like red lips and a leather jacket and be a little edgier. So it depends. Like we have different facets of our identity, and those are different moods, but it'll have the same vibe if you know who you are, because that will show through. So number one is know who you are. Number two is definitely, you can do an audit on the perception of, is who I am and what I'm putting out there congruent with what people think of me? And then you can go from there.
Mm. Would you say the biggest way to find out that identity, do the brand audit, can you do that by yourself or do you feel like you need someone to kind of coach and guide you through that?
You can definitely do it by yourself. Yeah, I would say like the biggest thing is like taking the time to actually do it.
Yeah.
And I think that there is obviously a lot of value in working with someone, even if it is just your friend, because especially when you're first starting out and, if you're a startup or you're just starting your business, a lot of times like you can't afford people that would be that guide. However, You can have like your friend come in and just ask you questions. The biggest thing is getting clear on who do you feel like you are? And actually ChatGPT, use ChatGPT now
Yeah.
for like the beginning phases, because there is value in having someone outside of your head, even if it is ChatGPT, to brainstorm back and forth. And this can be like the very, very beginning of who are you? And, actually, I'll give you a micro example. So, what you can actually do is just go on ChatGPT. You can voice note if you have the app for it,
Mhm.
just voice note and brain dump your entire story. This is who I am. This is where I've been. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I like. This is what I didn't. This is what I'm wanting to do. And just brain dump everything. And then be like, can you help me make sense of, my personal brand identity? And just start there, and that's something where that'll get you started to really start thinking about it and seeing yourself in a third person identity, because it removes that emotion from it, where then you can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that is me. That does make sense. Because a lot of times you can't see the forest through the trees. So starting with that is really important. And then from there, you know, you can look at all of the assets. Then it's like a brand audit. Let's say you've already started your business, and you look at the stuff that you already have and does it match? And a lot of times there is this disconnect. And then from there, you can start adjusting things.
Yes. The biggest gap that I see on the social media side is they're perceiving themselves in the way that they see themselves, not the way they want to or the way they want other people to.
Hmm.
And so I oftentimes have consultations with people and I'm like, okay, well, what do you not like about your social media? And they're like, well, it's not what I envision in my head, but they're still posting all the stuff that doesn't make sense, right? Maybe
Yeah.
it's a business account and they're really trying to focus on the business, but then they post all these random pictures of their family. And again, that cohesion, it's like off. And it's you can still post about your family. You can still share those things if they're important to you, but there's a way to do it that makes it all flow and feel authentic to you and yourself and give the vision that you want to your audience.
Oh, yeah. And that's a really great point, too, because sure, I really do recommend people to do the self discovery on their own. You have to have some level that, even if before people come to me, you have to have some level of like experience in personal development, I would say.
Mhm.
You have to kind of really know how to look introspectively at yourself and kind of organize things and whatever. Because then when you come to me, my gift is being able to understand who someone is and translate that aesthetically. Because that is the one thing that I have found after doing this over and over. No matter who someone is, that people just the aesthetic part is hard sometimes,
Mhm.
it's like knowing how to, that is a whole other language in and of itself. And that's why I think that the initial, who am I? What is the identity? That's something I think everyone has to have some understanding of how to do that. Because once you do that, you can consistently check yourself. Be like, am I
Mhm.
in alignment? How do I feel about this? Is this expansive, or do I feel like really anxious about this? And that will start giving you like body checks of, am I going in the right direction? And then
Mhm.
from there, when you're saying is, your clients would be posting things and it just feels incongruent because they'll post about this, and can I post about my family, and I'm going to write this or do this graphic, and that's where it can get really mismatched and it can feel incohesive or like incongruent, even though it all does make sense, because I'm a big proponent of everything makes sense for your brand when you're in alignment,
Mhm.
but it's the aesthetic part. The aesthetic part is that, how do you translate that? And then that's where I think that the level of working with an expert on said things is really helpful, because especially when you are going to work with a graphic designer or web designer, they're creating stuff for you. They take what you say and run with it. But what if you don't know what it is?
Mhm.
So you have to have that level of understanding or have someone to be able to really translate what that is. And then that's where you're able to, what you said before, is have these different elements and like post about different things and have it all make sense.
Yeah, I love that you said that, and while you were speaking, I'm like, "Man, there are so many clients that I'm like, you should go to
Yeah.
Kate first and then come to me." Because that is a
Yeah.
huge disconnect for me is sometimes I will get I work mostly with small to medium sized businesses, and the smaller businesses, I am sometimes one of their first hires, right? Because they're like,
Mm,
I can't run social media. I need marketing. Let me hire someone who can manage it and run it for me. And it's great. Like, I love those clients, but the biggest frustration that I have with them is they don't know who they are and they don't know what they
mhm.
want and they don't know what they're selling. They have the idea, but it's still an idea. And
Yeah,
so a lot of times I have to turn them away or I have to say, hey, I need you to essentially have a brand build out first.
yeah,
What is your brand? Who is your brand? What are you selling and why? And
mhm,
almost bringing that back to me as a Bible because guess what? Like you just said, I take all of that information. I take everything that essentially you would do with them. And now I'm applying it to social media and I'm the organizer, right? I'm the
right.
organizer. I'm the writer. I'm the one that's okay. I have all the info now. I have the aesthetic. Let me create a month's worth of content. And so, exactly what you're saying, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm starting a business, or even if you're just like feeling chaotic about it, such great points to start with the personal branding, create all of that, really understand who, what, why, and then move on to whatever marketing strategy you're looking to create.
Oh, 100%. Branding comes first, marketing comes second. And I
Yep,
think that way back when it was kind of lumped under the same thing.
it
Branding was
was.
like underneath of marketing, and it is a whole other thing now because it's a whole different game now.
Mhm,
And marketing is to amplify the brand. The brand is the identity, it's your personality. Well, you can't amplify if you don't have a personality, you can't amplify that. So
mhm,
that's where I think for me, I've learned so much of it is still educating people on why this comes first and why personal branding is not a luxury anymore. It is a necessity because there are so many people and out there that people can choose from. Every single market is saturated. However, there is white space when you are who you are because as cliche as it is, no one is you. No one has
mhm,
your point of view. No one has had your experiences. No one has had the insights that you have from the experiences and your passions and all the things. And so your gift is being able to synthesize that and distill it down and figure out what about this gives me a really unique perspective on my craft. So to give you a micro example for me, sure, I'm, you could say jack of all trades with everything within branding, but I'm a master. I zone in on founder presence and brand alignment. So I understand everything when it comes to branding and the strategy and can really piece all the things together on a high level because that's what I do. But when we're like going deep on one specific thing, especially like even if it's graphic design, web design, I have someone that I work with and I bring in and I become a creative director. And I'm like, here's how you make my vision come to life for this brand.
mhm.
I don't sit there doing it myself because that's where I don't know if you've read the book The Big Leap. In that book, it
Mm-mm.
talks about your zone of genius and then these layers outside of it. The next one is zone of excellence. And your zone of excellence is something that you are really good at, and a lot of people see that you're really good at it. So they'll ask you to do it, but that's not actually where your time is best spent. So your
Mhm,
zone of genius is something that is, you know, the intersection of what you love, what you do, and how you're getting paid for it, but also it feeds you energy. So it's this feedback loop. So what you're doing is giving you energy and you could do it forever. And
mhm.
your zone of excellence is it doesn't give you as much energy. So that's what I had to recognize is sure, I can do graphic design and things like that. I don't want to live there. I have the understanding, so I know how to articulate that to a designer, but I live on creative directing and that. So it's really interesting of again teaching people that there is a whole you kind of have to go in order for a couple things where
Mhm.
knowing who you are comes first and really figuring out how you want to portray yourself too because as a founder you're the one that's selling your business even if you have a company brand you're the one going to networking events and people vibe with people so having this clear identity of who you are and then how that spills over into your company is so important.
Yeah, that's so true. And I was just talking to someone earlier today about it because I was like, my business is named after me, right? So it's a direct reflection, both internally and externally,
Mm-hmm.
of me and what I'm providing for my clients. When I love that your business not only touches on the aesthetic of what's on social media, what's on the website, but you also talk about the person and styling. And I would love to
Mhm.
get a little bit into one, why that was important for you to include, because not every personal branding person focuses on style. Some of them only focus on, like I said, the web stuff. And two, how does that fall into your package? Is that something that you include with every client? Do you find that it is important to include it, or is it something that's like extra?
That's a great question and a great segue too, because my background was originally fashion. That's what I wanted to
Mm,
do. I wanted to do styling. And when I switched over to do branding, just through a series of things, I really built up that skill of the branding, the brand identity, how it all comes together, and just the how to portray yourself online. Because the question was, I'm creating cohesive graphics, but it's a whole other layer to have the energy come through the screen. And that's what I really learned how to refine and craft when it came to branding. It's like, how do you not only, it's not just, putting all the photos in the same filter and same colors, that it still feels like a flat brand. Why are there some brands that feel really dynamic? Why are there some brands that you just feel like you're there and you feel like you really understand them? And that is from harnessing every single touch point and like understanding the vibe and the energy piece. And that a huge part of that is fashion. Well, when I was doing that with my clients, it's probably ever since 2020 to 2020 was the first time I was like really getting a lot more deeper into brand shoots. And so then I would style my clients for the brand shoots because I wanted control. I knew the impact that what someone wears has on the screen, right? And so that was the first little bit. And then that became normal. A lot of clients would come to me first because they had a brand shoot scheduled, but then they start panicking, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to wear. I don't know anything. Maybe they didn't have the location, and then they would somehow get a referral and come to me. And so
mm,
that's how I started noticing. Like, I think at the time it was like 40% of my clients. That was the intro is I was referred to you by someone and I have a brand shoot planned. I have no idea what to wear. So incrementally fashion became more and more into my sphere. And then last year specifically, I started noticing that, or I noticed at the end of the year, is like 90% of my clients came to me for fashion first. It was either the brand shoot part of it, which was what do I wear? Or it was, and this was the main part, is I've been working so hard in my business. My business is successful now. I've been heads down. Now I have to be the founder, like outward facing, raising capital, going to networking events. I don't feel like myself anymore. I'm in leggings
mm,
and a top knot. My whole wardrobe, my closet doesn't feel like me. It's like a past version of myself. I don't know how to showcase myself in what I wear. Same story, just same story as the how do I showcase my personality online through a digital presence, but now we're working on what they're wearing because the nature of the world really is that you never know who you're going to meet and where. You could be on vacation sitting at the bar drinking a margarita in Mexico and meet your next client or meet your next business partner. You could be at dinner with your husband and all of a sudden someone comes by and blah, blah, blah. You start meeting them, or you see your colleague and they're like, oh my gosh, Kate, I need to introduce you to my friend who I'm having dinner with, blah, blah, blah. So you have to be ready. And not only there's so many different layers to this, but it affects your energy so much. Like when you put on an outfit and it's like your favorite one, you look in the mirror, I look so good. I feel so
yeah.
confident, my shoulders back. Like we've all been there. And those moments aren't just random. Like we can have that all the time. Like even just the other day, I was working on something and I was still in a very cute, like matching sweatshirt, sweatpants, crop thing. It was cute. But then I was like, I feel too something like I needed to change. So I like went and changed and it was super basic and super light and free. It was just like a bodysuit with like one of my favorite denims and just looked really effortless vibe. And I was like, okay, I feel so much like I knew how to adjust what I like my energy through what I wore. So that's
Mm,
always been something that I've done. And then I started talking about it more. And then when I started noticing that all my clients were coming to me for that first, I was like, well, duh, no one wants to put themselves out there if they don't look and feel good. So that was the thing of when I kind of started shifting my own marketing really to be like, okay, I've always had that, like, I'm the fashion person, everyone comes to me for that. But then now, how do you bring these two things together? And so some of my clients have a really dialed in brand already, like they've got it good, but they didn't have the fashion element and how they were being perceived. Their wardrobe felt like a past version. So we only do styling for them. And I'll help them with like periodical like brand audits or something. And that's it. And that's more like our focus for them is style. Then there are some of my clients where they start with me for branding and then it goes into the style element. And then most of them now are just both because it is so interwoven. Like,
Mhm.
why would you have everything dialed in for your online presence, but then your in-person presence of networking and all things, like there's this disconnect. So that's how I've started working with people. I have a styling platform that I started now where I can digitize their entire wardrobe. We can go through closet audits, and the whole number one thing is just you have to know who you are. No matter if it's branding, no matter if it's style, it starts with that. Know who you are, know what your style is. So then we'll kind of figure out their core style, what their vibe is, how to express their vibe through fashion. And then and these are all things I can either, they can DIY. I have the mini course that I'll have them DIY with, or we'll go through it together. It kind of depends. But the closet audit, now that you know your style, let's go through your closet, go through each piece. And literally, it's a very energetic thing. Raise it up. Does it raise your vibe? Keep it neutral or lower your vibe? Anything that lowers your vibe, get rid of it. It's out, done. Anything that's neutral, that only means like, how can we make this a high vibe outfit? Because a basic white tee might not do that much for you, but the way you style it could. And so then we'll work together on finding these missing pieces in their closet. Like maybe I recognized last year, a good example is I had a bunch of crop tops. I was like, if I had high waisted white palazzo pants, I could wear like 30 different outfits. So then I wrote that on a list. I was like, okay, next time I'm going to go shopping, I'm going to pick from this list. It's kind of intentional shopping list just to make sure we know what to put in there. So you're not going to repeat the cycle of buying something, getting your closet and being like, WTF, how do I wear this? And then it stays in there with a tag on it and you never wear it. So I kind of coach people through, I'll either, like I said, they can DIY, we can do it together, but then we'll get their wardrobe to baseline. Maybe some of my clients want to digitize their wardrobe. So they'll take pictures of everything, upload it in my software that I use, and AI immediately removes the background. And then that way I have access to their closet and can make looks for them. So beginning of every month, we'll kind of go through, what do you have coming up? Oh, I have 3 networking events this month. Here's the location. Here's the vibe, blah, blah, blah. I'll put pieces together, assign them to their calendar. They know what to wear on what day. Same for vacations. So there's a heavy element on style for that, but it's the same thing because it's all you.
Yeah, that program sounds incredible and like a dream come true. How do you even figure out what your style is? Let's say you have done the work, you know who you are. How do you guide someone to figure out then what their style is?
I love that. That's a great question. So I always start with a mood board. So now, like you said, you've done the work, you've sat with yourself, you know who you are. And I kind of use that as a test of how decisive are you? Do you know who you are? Can you be decisive if you see something and feel into your body? Yes, no, done. That's the level we want to get to. And so I like to say, to start this discovery process is number one, take a social detox at least for a couple of hours, because a lot of time before you go into any of these like creative exercises, because when we consume a lot, I like look at it where it's pushing all your ideas and all of your thoughts like
Mm,
down. So you have everyone else's at top of mind. So I feel like when you have a social detox, you're kind of, detoxing everyone else's ideas out of your head to allow your ideas and creativity to flow to the top. Just like
mhm.
my visual that I use for it. So just either be off the social for a couple hours or for 24 hours and then open up Pinterest. Pinterest, I love using that more than just creating a traditional mood board because it allows you to go down the rabbit hole and it allows you to stumble upon things that you wouldn't search for. So open up Pinterest, create a board, keep it secret if you like, and then just go down the rabbit hole. And I say to do that for a minimum of 45 minutes to an hour at your first time. because I have found that it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to work the kinks out. I don't know, you got to get in a flow state with it. And usually after 15 minutes, you're starting to get some rhythm down. And then you just pin anything that you resonate with, anything that makes you feel something. It could be colors, clothes, food, architecture, patterns, like it doesn't matter. It could be anything. And you want to put that in your board. And then from there, you just get off of Pinterest. Let it sit for a little bit, go the next day, open it up, look at everything that you pinned, and then delete anything that no longer resonates with you. Because in that moment, you can kind of be caught up in, whatever it might be. So delete anything until you feel good, then just sit with it. And then this is what I talk about in my course too, of here's how to translate that mood board. Here's how to look at it to then see like, okay, maybe you're seeing maybe there's a lot of expansive images. So it could be fields, like big open fields, or it could be tall ceilings, or it could be lots of things like that. And you start looking at it and seeing where are the patterns and where are the themes. Do I keep seeing certain colors, and not just colors, but certain shades and hues come up? Maybe it's a very specific blue color that's coming up all the time and that you're drawn to. Or you'll start to see maybe that it's like you start learning, oh my gosh, I clearly care about aesthetic environments. Like all of the restaurants I'm pinning have some type of a plot twist, like a unique thing inside their restaurant. It's not just beautiful, it's edgy, and so you'll start noticing these things and you start learning about that. And then it's going deeper of sitting with, well, how can I translate this into what I wear? And maybe it is just as simple as trying on colors, trying on textures, or, looking at finding a Pinterest photo and replicating that and just seeing how you feel. But that's how I would start discovering your style. And then that's where it gets into you're able to replicate a little bit. And the biggest thing again is feel into your energy. Like, how does this make me feel? Okay, I like the jewelry that I'm wearing from replicating that photo, but I don't love like the shoulders of this jacket. So now you know. And a lot of times it's like figuring out what you don't like more, like first, and then it kind of informs what else that you want to look into.
I can't wait to go sit on the couch and make my Pinterest board now.
It's so fun. It's so
Yes.
soothing. And I have clients that do it. Oh my goodness, and I do it for myself all the time, but I have clients where we've been working together long enough now, and they keep this, it's almost like what I call like the master board, right? And then we can have mood boards for different occasions. So one, for example, she went to Europe this past summer and we had a board just for Europe of what the vibe that she was thinking. We had
Mhm.
another one for a different event. We had another one for a different event. So you can do like little pockets, but then there is this master board that anytime she sees something, she just puts it in there. And it's cool because we've been working together for 3 years now. You can go back in that board and scroll through and you can see the pockets and the little sections of, oh, she was really into these colors and this vibe and energy. And then it kind of shifted back to this. But what I like to say is your cycle kind of goes in this, or your style goes in a cycle, right?
Mhm.
So you have your core style, you figure out what that is for you. And then I find that it correlates to a lot of times in business, like when your core style, when you lean heavy into your core style, it's when you need to feel grounded. It's when you need to feel some type of stability in your business. It's something that your head's down. Maybe you're just like figuring things out. And then when you start like experimenting, kind of coming out of that, and you want to find and test different trends, then it's probably a time in your business where you want to have more exposure, that you're going out and you're trying new things. And so it's like looking at these trends and figuring out, okay, what do I want to try? All right, let's try this trend, but how do I like run it through my filter and make it me? So then you see something, you try it on, what about it you like and what you don't. And then you can that's how you evolve your style as well. So you take trends and the ones that make you feel more like you keep and you figure out how it works within your core style. And then you move on. So like back to her mood board, I could see there's these pockets of time, like sections of the different styles and trends that she was into just for that season. And then I can see, oh, she kept this. Oh, she kept this trend. Oh, she kept this. And now it's kind of become, this more robust core style.
That is
because
so
it's a long
interesting.
game.
It is, yeah. And I was gonna, while you were speaking, I was gonna ask you next about trends because as a style expert, are trends a good thing? Is it, I know there's people out there that are like, oh, try the trends. There's other people that are like, they're gonna fade, don't try them. So I'm curious to know your opinion.
It's so funny. I have been on one with trends recently because here's so at the end of the day, I think trends are a great resource to discover more of who you are. That's really what fashion is here to help you do, is to try different things, try it on, feel into your body, what makes you feel more like you, and then of those things, keep it and figure out how it works within your style.
Mhm.
Now, the trends are really interesting because I've been having this conversation with one of my really good friends. She used to be a product developer in beauty. So this was like her whole space where they would buy. Have you heard of a company called WGSN?
No.
It's one of the major trend forecasting companies. They've been around for 25 years, and that's kind of like when they all kind of started. And so it's interesting because I've been having this back and forth of, well, are trends even that relevant? Because
Mm.
back then, with the trend, like how with the trends back then, you would buy this book. This trend forecasting book is like 20, 30, $60,000. Crazy that all the brands and the designers will purchase. And
Mm.
so pre-social media, that is, I mean, it only made sense, right? That's how you would find out what's going on. And it was to me, I've just been questioning this so much recently, and even like having conversations with the WGSN about it and like back and forth. I'm like, but it just feels irrelevant now because
Mhm.
it feels that if you're coming out with this trend forecasting book and all of the major brands and designers are all buying it because it's basically taking the guesswork out for them, and it's also, in my point of view, they're kind of outsourcing their power and their creativity, but that's a whole other conversation. But it's inevitable that it's going to be a trend because if
Mhm.
everyone's buying the same information to inform their product development, it's the same thing,
Exactly.
right? And so it's interesting because with social media, you get these trends like Brat Summer and that lime green. No one, WGSN, none of these, no one could predict what happened. And that wasn't even an intentional thing. And so it's interesting because that happens. And then I saw them post something of, oh, our colors for autumn, winter 26, 27 are out now. We're so excited about this color palette. And it's, mind you, this is 2 years from now. It's chocolate brown, which aren't we kind of in that now? Brat green, which isn't that 2 or 3 months ago. And then chrome silver, that was last year. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, we're just recycling. Like, where's the innovation? And it's
Right.
so interesting to see. It's like what people used to think as these holy grail trend companies. I just wonder if they're becoming obsolete, because
Mm.
how can you, at least for that, how can you predict 5, 10 years in the future? And you can only predict it, or it will actually come true if everyone's buying from the same information. That is why I can go on and on about that. But that's why I love what social media has done for trends. I love the whole idea of trying different trends. I don't think it's necessary to try everything because one, it can get expensive. And two, you want to, buy things that are very you. But I think when it comes to trends, I think that they're there to help you discover more of who you are. And I also think that you can wear things these days. It doesn't like we kind of have the freedom of wearing things that aren't always in trend. Like the main question I get now is, can I still wear my skinny jeans? And I'm like, yeah, girl, you can. And if you want to wear your skinny jeans, well, first of all, what jeans are you going to wear with boots, knee high boots? You're going to have to wear some or combat boots. Like you're going to have to wear your skinny jeans. But what you can do is you can balance it with something hyper trendy. So you can wear a skinny jean because if people feel weird about wearing something that's so out of trend right now, wear the skinny jeans, wear the combat boots, and then or switch it to like those equestrian boots that are really in right now. and then wear the oversized like boyfriend blazer with a corset bodysuit. So you're getting the hyper trend with the skinny jean that's technically not in style right now, but don't get rid of it. So it's trends are great to explore who you are, bring them into your wardrobe, but don't stop. If you love them, don't stop wearing it because it's not trendy. Like just know how to evolve that trend to work with what is in style now.
Yeah, I love all of those tips because it's so true. It's you, and at least for me, I'll get rid of things, and 2 months later, something comes back. You're like, why did I get rid
Oh
of that?
yeah.
So
Oh
it's,
yeah.
I love the mix of keeping what you have, adding in the things that are super trendy that you're liking, and then balancing it out.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, there are certain things that will always come back around.
Mhm,
Skinny jeans versus, and usually a huge like bucket or category would be oversized or fitted.
yeah,
So skinny jeans are always going to come back around, and baggy, or not, baggy, or let's say straight leg, bootleg, that will always come back around. And
yeah,
again, I still think that you can wear them in the times that aren't technically on trend. Just like I said, balance it, but take those pieces, put them in a bin, put them at the top of the closet because everything comes back around. And that's kind of like my other thing too when it comes to these like trend companies. Like they didn't start until 20-ish years ago. And think about if you look at the 90s, we have had, or even just like actually anything past that too, we've had eras and like decades of fashion. We've had,
mhm,
when I say 20s fashion, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When I say 70s, 80s, 90s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And all of those, but then once we get to 2000s, we're just starting to kind of regurgitate a lot of it.
yeah.
And that's where I'm like, I have no idea if this is kind of my own kind of figuring this out. But is that because of these trend companies? It's kind of a coincidence that like when they started being introduced, we start like regurgitating everything because
Mhm,
what is looking out for the dollar, looking out for the
yep.
bottom line of your company, making sure that things are going to sell, where like innovation has like really taken a toll. So that's where I think it's interesting of everything does. In our case, everything comes back around. So that's good. So just keep it in the top of your closet and kind of learn like how to mix it back in.
I completely agree with you there. Things do repeat, and social media, I do feel has allowed that to break up a little bit in the fact that there's just so many more minds and hands in the pot of
Yeah.
trends, and you don't know, like you said, you don't know what's going to go viral or what things are going to pick up. And it's like less predicting for these brands because they don't know what's going to come. Like they can predict
Hmm.
all they want, but at the end of the day, the younger minds have a hold of their phones and their apps and are gonna make things trendy that we're not even aware of.
100%. And I think that's where I think brands now can have so much more power. There's a huge open space here that if they know who they are, and this is not just personal brands, this is like people at the helm of these company brands too. If you really understand your brand and its ethos and its identity, and you know who it is, and you know what story you're wanting to tell, because also there are so many brands now. If you don't have a story, if you don't have a mission, if you don't have a clear identity, you're out almost
Mhm,
immediately. So that's where I think that it's going to be really interesting to see, because I think that the power is really given back to the brands if they decide to take it. If they
mhm,
decide to have the power in their own hands to be really creative and innovative and understand how to convey and articulate their story to their audience in a really unique way, then who cares what the trend companies are saying? So that was a huge thing. I mean, if you think of it where, you know, even look at Barbie, right? Barbie was this whole cultural phenomenon. And granted, that was much more of this mainstream thing. But I remember my friend who she was even saying when she worked back in like product development, one of the smaller companies that she worked for, they kind of did the same thing. It was a hot pink similar to Barbie, but it was obviously like 10 years prior. But she was like, no trend company said that was going to be the trend, but we took a risk on whatever the product was, and she was like, we were able to start our own like little trend within that. And because you can see through the analytics what is spiking, like what colors and all things are spiking on searches, and you can create your own trend that trend companies couldn't have even predicted because you know your audience so well, you know your brand so well, and you know how to articulate the story that you're wanting to tell and sell to people and what you like that movement, then you could just create your own movement through through the aesthetics that you choose. And so I think that's where using TikTok and using Instagram and using social and all these things is so powerful to the brands that actually want to take a risk and want to innovate. Because I see people want the plot twist. We want innovative creativity. And I think that a lot of people, especially younger generations, getting really bored with like, why are we repeating nostalgia? Like,
Yeah.
okay, we get it. Like, why are we, remaking every single movie now? Do we not have new stories coming out? But
Yes.
I think it goes to all of these brands too. If
Mhm.
if you understand your style, if you understand your brand identity and your stories, and you know how to articulate that, then and you will take a risk on it, I think that would pay off way more because you're going to be able to connect with people much deeper.
You really just brought this whole conversation full circle from the fashion to the personal branding
Yeah.
back to it. So you're very good at what you do. Is absolutely, and I mean, you look at these brands similar to, Barbie, which essentially reinvented themselves in the summer. And like,
Oh yeah.
that is fashion. That is personal
Hmm.
branding. Like every single girl last year was Barbie ever. And like all of that encompasses personal branding, the marketing, the
Hmm.
fashion, everything. It's not just one thing, but I think personal branding and fashion specifically for founders does get overlooked a lot. And it's wild to me because like I said, it is the foundation of everything that you need as both a business owner and also just a business as a whole. Because at the end of
Hmm.
the day, we're all selling ourselves, right? And we're
Yeah.
all selling who we are. And I mean, I tell clients all the time, I'm like, you can work with any social media company in the world. You are buying me. You're buying the
Hmm.
interaction we had and the trust that was built over our calls. And so asking yourself, like, how do you want to show up? How do you want them to perceive you? And what values and integrity align with that?
Yeah. And that's where it is with controlling the narrative. And I know that can sound a little more PR-esque, but it's through authenticity. Because the other question I get asked a lot is if I'm being an authentic brand, do I have to show, I don't want to show my family online. I don't want to
Mm,
showcase all of these things. Like, how much do I tell? And I was like, there are so many, like, people think that they know me. There's a lot of stuff that I don't share.
yeah.
But it's just, you're allowed to have those buckets. You're allowed to be like one of my clients. I never show my husband because he doesn't want to be shown. People know that he exists. And I talk about him or talk about him in certain ways, but we have boundaries with that. Or I
Mhm.
don't want to show my kids. Or I started doing close friends list of I only like when I have a lot like more stuff with my kids. Okay, cool. Anyone that I've met and have interaction with can go on that list. So it's like you can have boundaries and which like you can still showcase your authentic self while still keeping things to yourself. And
Mhm.
that's a big thing of just like understanding. It does start with knowing who you are because then you can go through, okay, what do I want to keep to myself? What do I want people to know? And like how do I choose what people know? Well, that goes back to the story of your brand. Like what are you wanting people to connect with you on? So it all just, goes hand in hand
It
with
all
each other.
connects,
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's
definitely.
definitely parts of the strategy that you can eventually get into as a business owner of content pillars and buckets and deciding what you're talking about when and keeping it almost small and specific. So one, it's easier for you to understand what you're posting and what you're talking about,
Hmm.
and two, easier to have those boundaries of this is the part of my life that I want to share and it's still authentic and it's still going to help grow my
Hmm.
audience, but it's not giving out my social security number and reading my diary,
Yeah,
right? Those lines
exactly.
clearly. Kate, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I had such a good time with this conversation. I feel like I learned so much about essentially a gap I didn't even know that my clients in my business
Yeah,
had. So I appreciate you so much. I
absolutely.
I love to end the conversation just discussing the advice that you would offer someone in the in between. And for this conversation specifically, I would say the business owner that's, oh, holy shit, what have I done? I've created a business and I have no personal branding and I have no sense of who I am. What do I do? They're in that in between. What would advice would you give them?
So I think it really depends. Okay, let's say they haven't done anything yet, right? I think the importance is getting to know yourself and taking a step back and just let's kind of connect. I want you to connect the dots yourself first. I'm here to do that for people, but I like to empower people to then also know how to do it themselves so people can evolve without me. I never want someone to feel like it's necessary that, oh my gosh, like I can't do anything unless like we work together. I like to teach people what to do. So number one, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, is I would definitely utilize ChatGPT. Use that as a sounding board to just, if you're starting from absolute zero and you're just like so confused. You have so many thoughts in your head, and you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't really have the money to start with it yet. And even if you did, I would still say to do this first. Go on ChatGPT and just voice note. If you don't like that, then go on a Google Doc and just write out your story. All we need is your story. We want to know where you've been, like even give everything, where you've been, all the stories that come to your head that you might think are random, they're coming to your head for a reason. So write it all
Mhm.
down, brain dump it, and that can go from your background to college to your jobs to where you're at now, why you started your business. Just brain dump everything and then put it in ChatGPT and be like, can you help me, you know, really make sense of my story? And you could even, there's lots of different ways that you could say that. You could say, can you tell it back to me in the story as if I'm, sharing my story on, I don't know if you want to go as far as on stage, but like things like that, right? So it's just however you want to hear it. Or you could literally say, can you craft a brand identity for me and just see what happens? And
Mhm.
that will start to connect the dots for you. And it'll start just like making everything make sense. That is, I feel like that would just be my number one place for if you're in that in between moment. It's a beautiful tool to help you get unstuck, to get to this first iteration of things just making sense for you, because is just a really confusion is the thing that keeps you stuck. And so once you can start taking action and get even a little bit of clarity, you'll start to feel a lot better and feel like your nervous system will just calm down and it'll feel like diffused a little bit. And then once you get to that point, then of course, like I would love to help anyone with their brand identity, but that's where then you can start really sitting with it and just being like, okay, well, how do I want to move forward with this? Do I, if I have no personal brand, maybe do an audit and ask your friends, hey, what are my strengths, weaknesses, unique ability, and give me 3 answers for each, or ask them different questions and just see like, poll your audience if you already have a brand on like using Instagram, pull your audience, be like, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of me, or whatever it is, and just gather some data. And then from there, then you want to, now that you have a wide range of data, then you just want to start synthesizing it, organizing it, and then get strategic with it.
I love that. I think that's such great advice and tips. And I think if you are starting this journey into brand identity, I would highly recommend to listen to Kate's podcast because I was binging a bunch of episodes myself
Oh,
today at the
you're so
gym.
sweet.
And there she just gives you give so much great advice there and tangible tips. Like I think I listened to one on actually brand photo shoots because I have one coming up in December
Oh, fun.
and actual tangible tips that I could take and implement and make my life easier going into that shoot. So I highly recommend that. And with that, would you please tell everyone where they can follow you, listen to your podcast, and then if they want to connect with you to potentially work together with brand identity, where they could do that?
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you were listening to that. Yeah,
Yes.
so my podcast is called Such a Vibe. And that is just their quick tips, anywhere from 10 minutes to 30, I think 30 minutes might be my longest one. It's just me. I don't interview anybody. But I love that what you said is they're tangible tips, because that was my intention with it, is that
Mhm.
I want, very much value efficiency. And I really want every single episode for you to end with something that you can go and implement right now and get a result. So that, I mean, it ranges anywhere from talking about branding to talking about style and colors, or like how to elevate the vibe in your kitchen, like all, like it's kind of all over the board, but that's the purpose. It's like, how can you be such a vibe in your life. And so
Yep.
that's my podcast. And then Instagram is just kate.obert. And for working with me, you can just go to my website, send me a DM on Instagram. Very easy, whatever. We can kind of talk about whether you need help with the brand identity aspect first and the styling, or, I think it's just, I have a form you can just fill out and we'll just get on a call and we'll just see where the gaps are and how to connect all the things. And then if you are wanting to just start with style, my mini course that I was talking to you about, it's called Style Alignment and it's only $97. So that is the number one thing where we are kind of talking about today. So 9 videos, they're like under 10 minutes each, very short, but it's walking you through. If you want to start to figure out what your style is, and this can help with your fashion and your branding, you could just like start there and that will lay the groundwork really well.
I love that. I think I need that course. I'm gonna have to go check it
Yeah.
out. Well, thank
It's
you
so good.
so
It's my
much.
favorite.
I know. I'm excited to dive into it. I definitely want to look it up. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode because I learned so much. I'm going to make sure to drop all of this information to connect with Kate, follow her Instagram and her podcast in the show notes. And don't forget to follow at In Between Combos on Instagram. We'll catch you guys later.